We were a $17.5 billion fund at our peak, the seventh largest hedge fund in the world. I moved back to India in early 2013. So it's been around 7.5 years. I spent around 11 years in London, have been back in India for 7.5. Ideas which are sin-oriented, for a lack of a better word, always sell. India is leapfrogging a sort of the traditional route of what you have seen in the US, what you have seen in other sort of advanced economies. And hence all these case studies that we get, sometimes fail because of this leapfrogging event, right? So we launched a product in April 2018, got great response. Ultimately, we grew that business to 2.2 million users. I mean, there is really no first mover advantage. There is really a first scaler advantage in my view. If maybe some of your audience hears it, or maybe Karan Johar hears it, this is a great idea. Please go ahead and
he's in the audience. Hi, Karan Johar.
Hi, Karan. I believe that what EdTech has always told you is either greed or vanity, right?
Hi, welcome to the Crux podcast. My name is Naman, and this week we talk to Anshul Rustaggi, a $3.5 billion hedge fund manager from London who's come to India and is building products for the Indian consumer. His ventures include a real money gaming company, MGPL, and an interactive short video social media platform, Yovo. Anshul is a dear friend, and we talk about various things. His hedge fund days, his startups, a startup idea for Karan Johar, the importance of network effects, and why he calls Dhirubhai Ambani Dhiru Kaka. Hope you enjoy the conversation, and of course, do not forget to like and subscribe, guys. Come on. Anshul, hi, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for the invite. Happy to be here.
No, definitely, sir. So for all the people who don't know, the friend I was talking about in the previous podcast who helped me finalize the idea of the podcast is Anshul. So of course, I had to have Anshul on the podcast. Anshul, as you know, the agenda of the podcast is pretty simple. We'll talk about what it takes to build businesses in India, and who better to talk to as someone who's done really, really well outside in investing and come back to India to build businesses. So there's a very, very good insight that we're hoping you'll be able to provide कि बाहर क्या चलता है और इंडिया में क्या चलता है, उनमें जो distinctions हैं वो हम समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. But before we talk about कि वो तुम्हारे नए businesses के बारे में, let's talk about your past a little bit. What did you do? What were your hedge fund days like, etc.? So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Look, let me just give you a little bit of brief for everyone about a little bit of my background before my hedge fund days as well. I'm a Delhiite, born and brought up in Delhi. Did my engineering from IIT Delhi, went to IIM Bangalore, and from there, I was fortunate to get a job in London in the finance industry. I was mostly in the hedge fund area where we were managing, money globally. This was an American hedge fund called Stark Investments. We were a $17.5 billion fund at our peak, the seventh largest hedge fund in the world. And I was again fortunate to become the Europe and Asia partner, and we were cumulatively managing around $3.5 billion from our Europe office, right? So, hedge fund is I would say that has, in one way has been a very, very intellectually challenging sort of journey. The brilliance I found about sort of finance, hedge funds, and money management is that really the time you take from ideation to implementation is almost frictionless, right? Now, of course, finance has a lot of regulations, and being part of a large institution like Stark gives you the infrastructure to be able to go through all the compliances and the regulations in a proper manner. But as far as the investment is concerned, if you have an idea, you have a thesis, you really, back yourself on it, you have all the data points which are right, it's literally a press of the button, right? And I think my sort of biggest learning is, from a trading world to forming a sort of these real life businesses, that's really the massive difference, right? The hedge fund world is all about intellectual sort of, for lack of a better word, intellectual superiority, right? If the market is generally thinking at step X? Can you think of step X plus one, which is going to come soon? What is going to cause it? What is the thesis behind it? Why will the market agree to it? Because, you can be right, but if the market doesn't agree to it, it doesn't really make a difference. So it's just about sort of trying to figure out the market one step further at all points of time. And it's really dynamic because of that, right? So what I loved is it's almost like, so I fell in love with trading in 2002. The moment I did it, it's instant feedback, right? You sit down, you put a trade on, the very second you know whether you're right or not. I think it can become a little dangerous because you are sort of so attached to your success of seeing these numbers flip-flopping around in terms of loss or profits. But that instant feedback, that instant gratification, which now all of us have gotten used to because of the internet, the trading provided that, right? And that intellectual challenge every day, right? Every time I thought I have figured out the market, you would end up doing a trade where the market would prove you wrong. You'll go back to the drawing board thinking, man, I got to figure out so much more, right? And it's an ever changing environment, right? Like I don't do as much trading today, but the environment today is so different from the environment a decade ago when I was doing active trading. I mean, it's just crazy, right? A lot of human behavior doesn't change, a lot of human pattern doesn't change, but obviously financial conditions are very different, economic conditions are very different, and hence what the market does is very, very different. So yeah, last I would say that I was lucky enough to sort of get a breadth of across asset class. Mostly I traded in credit derivatives and equity derivatives, but we did trading in a little bit of commodities, currencies. We did some really interesting trades with life insurance companies and life settlements. And again, I think I'll actually quote our founder, Brian Stark, who used to say that, look, all hedge funds we are vacuum cleaners of the business, right? So really what is happening is there are all these road rollers of big markets like, mutual funds and retail investors who have these big money coming in, and they leave these small opportunities, and hedge funds have to find those small opportunities. And as vacuum cleaners just go and take that opportunity before a road roller runs you over, right? So I think that's probably the best way to sort of describe it.
That's a very good way to describe arbitrage, I'm guessing, which is again what you used to do,
yeah,
right?
I guess I was just trying to simplify, but yeah, exactly. That is exactly what arbitrage is, right? So you could be an LTCM and get run over by the road roller big time, irrespective of what your thesis is. And that happened a lot in 2008 as well, right? When the credit crisis hit, there were obvious no, quote unquote, no risk trades left. But you just kept losing money because the market was against you, right? In a way, it's actually not that dissimilar to what happened with oil recently, where oil went negative. Now, academic theory would tell you, common sense would tell you that how can you get a commodity for negative and still get paid for it, right? A commodity you use every day. But again, that is the road roller effect. If you don't really understand the market technicals, you will get rolled over.
I mean, you've opened a Pandora's box, and we should have a podcast about that. So we will.
Right.
Okay. But today is about building a business in India. And again, that's the problem with our conversations. There are so many strands that we generally have that we could pick any of those and have an hour-long conversation. Right.
Agreed.
But let's talk about this point that you said, ki, you were into, it was the intellectual superiority and the frictionless execution, which you used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Shift to India, which is where the potential is immense, right? So there are too many ideas. So intellectual superiority per se does not have that edge, but there is frictionful execution. The amount of execution that you have to do, that is where you win. So what's that journey been like? Why the hell would you move from this intellectual superiority to frictionless execution to coming back to India, where there's immense potential, but it's the execution which will count? So why did you take that journey?
Okay, so look, I moved back to India in early 2013. So it's been around 7.5 years. I spent around 11 years in London, have been back in India for 7.5. My move was the trigger of my move was a lot more personal. I wanted to be back with my parents. The reason I'm here is, and I'm still here, is I think the economic opportunity in India is just tremendous, right? Like exactly what you said, is just full of ideas, full of opportunities to be explored, right? So again, I did was a little fortunate to have an interesting journey here. I moved back. I didn't really want to dive back into work. I actually ended up doing law full time from Campus Law Center, where I met you as well, and we became really good friends. And I think law just was probably in a lot of ways the perfect sort of gateway for me to come back and connect with India, right? Without revealing my age, let me just say that I'm a couple of years older than my 20s. I'll leave it at that. But look, jokes apart, the fact that I was able to spend 3 years with people who were, significantly younger than me, really give me that feel of what the youth in India is about now and what India is about now, right? Which is very, very different to when I sort of went to my college and my school in India. And really, I had never worked in India because right after education in India, I started my work and my career in London as well, right? And the other interesting aspect about law is obviously law is really telling you about all the beliefs that India has over history and the beliefs we have today and how that is impacting law, right? And interestingly, right after law, because I had studied it, and as I always believe, little knowledge is dangerous. A lot of ideas that I had in my mind were, for a lack of a better word, legal arbitrage, right? So a friend of mine from IIM Bangalore convinced me to join his firm, Indo Spirit. He is, doing really well in the alcoholic beverage market. He had some great ideas, which I was interested to jointly execute with him, and together we, explored various possibilities. We went into the vaping business. Again, I would say vaping was this great idea. I kind of feel, look, or ideas which are sin oriented, for a lack of a better word, always sell, right? Now, smoking is obviously a sin, so is sugar, by the way, right? But smoking obviously has a lot of harmful effects. And with vaping, I saw something which is, in my opinion, proven to be 95% safer than smoking, and yet delivers you the sort of same, for lack of a better word, the tobacco or the nicotine high that you get out of smoking, right? And I thought that's a tremendous opportunity, particularly for a country like India, where so many deaths are are occurring because of smoking and smoking-related diseases, right? Air pollution in India is bad anyway, and smoking just exaggerates your problems even more. So, again, I think the big realization to the point you made about intellectual superiority versus execution is I really felt, and this is something I'm really trying to learn. Still, I think my bias, because of my learning, is that let me make an idea that is so intellectually superior, and let me make a product that is so intellectually superior that no one can compete with me, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't really work in normal businesses, because what happens is, to the consumer, to the end consumer, the intellectual superiority of an idea really doesn't matter. All that matters to them and what they're going to experience is what is that net experience that you give to them, and what is the one benefit that you actually give to them, right? Now, you might have said, hey, vaping is all this cool, nicotine, I'll get the hit. But am I really getting that hit? Can you really prove to me or convince me that this is really healthy for me? They don't really care about, army of research papers, because one side is saying it's unsafe, the other side is saying it's safe. Can you really convince me in a easy, drive that point home manner that it is safer for me, yet I want to do it? I think that's where the edge lies, right? And this is something that, so I started, working from 2016 in India. This is something that I'm still sort of understanding in the last 4 years. It's a very, very big change from how you do finance to how you actually you look at execution-oriented businesses. And I would say, every country and every ecosystem has their own, pros and cons. But definitely there is a little more sort of friction in India. And this is not, I'm not talking about regulation or sort of piece of business aspect. I mean, that is what it is, but there is enough of an industry to sort of help you and support you in that. I think that this is a very interesting point of there are tons of people in India who haven't even gotten exposed to the global products, right? So imagine that there is this large set of population of people who have maybe not experienced cable TV, but straight away are on short video apps.
Yeah, which is what
a large
happened
set
to
of people who have
like
never.
yeah.
Sorry. So I'm saying a large set of people who have probably never smoked BD, graduated to smoking, but have straight away experienced vaping, right? A large set of people who have probably never taken the Desi Daru, graduated to the Old Monk, graduated to the BP, but now they're straight away having Johnny Walker Blue Label. And I think that's where the difficulty in India lies, right? India is leapfrogging a sort of the traditional route of what you have seen in the US, what you have seen in other sort of advanced economies. And hence all these case studies that we get sometimes fail because of this leapfrogging event, right? So, you and I were discussing some products in our last conversation when we were just chatting informally. And it's just a world where it's very difficult to even assess what that behavior is going to be, right? And I think that's the challenge. So I would say a lot of what I have been trying to do so far is actually create products which will give new behavior in the consumer market, to be honest, right? So the first product we launched in the tech space was MGPL, Mobile Gaming Premier League. So this was something that my co-founder Paritosh and I thought of in late 2017. We thought that, look, India actually is a much bigger gambling market, and it's estimated to be $350 billion versus US, which is only $150 billion. Obviously, gambling is illegal in India. However, this is where, again, legal arbitrage comes. Skill gaming is allowed in India. So rummy, poker, fantasy is allowed. Even at the time when we were sort of looking into this idea, fantasy sports was a really big market. It has only continued to grow. We said, well, it seems crowded. Rummy seems crowded. What is another play that we can give people that adrenaline rush, right? So we came up that, hey, casual gaming is what a lot of people already do. 300 plus million gamers in India. Let's add the element of money, but keep it skill rather than chance, so that it's legal, it's allowed in India as well, and people have a formal opportunity to take part into it. So we launched the product in April 2018, got great response. Ultimately, we grew that business to 2.2 million users. But again, came a very interesting learning, right? So the main player in this market.
Sorry, can you talk about the name of the product? What's the name of the product, and can you explain the product a little bit? What was the name?
Yeah, the name of the product was MGPL, Mobile Gaming Premier League. Really our idea was that, listen, anything with Premier League added to the end gives a direct connection to the people. We are doing mobile gaming, so this wasn't really that much of a genius idea. We said Mobile Gaming Premier League. If we said that to everybody got it. कि हाँ ठीक है समझ गए. IPL जैसा है वैसे आप MGPL जैसा कुछ बना रहे हो. So great, got it. Hits the point. Launched it in April 2018. The idea was, look, you and I can play Candy Crush. You put in 10 rupees, I put in 10 rupees. The winner takes 16. And we, for organizing this, for the technology we provide for the matchmaking, fraud detection, take 4 rupees as a rake to actually facilitate that, right? So very simple idea, really started taking off. An interesting thing happened. That market was very big. My view was that, listen, I really want to bootstrap a business, right? My idea was, listen, I want to enter into a business which is profitable. I'll grow it. This is monetization from day one. Really felt I don't really need VC money. Didn't have as much understanding as to why you need VC money. And we launched in April 2018. In September, MPL, which is Mobile Premier League, actually launched with, and I think they were smart to understand that this is a very big market, and they played it in a very different manner. They raised $5 million. I think in 5 months, I had garnered 1 million users. And if I'm right, on day one, they got 1 million users because they had money to throw, right? And for a long time, I would have to say I was in denial. I was like, who cares? They have money. I was banging the table. We have better product, better experience. And at some point, it really doesn't matter because it is a game of distribution. So to the point of friction that we were talking about, this is where the money makes a difference, right? Now you have to educate the market, make them aware that this is a product that is happening, that you can trust us. They obviously, did it well, got Virat Kohli as a brand ambassador, instantaneously solved the trust problem, whereas in MGPL, we had to jump through a lot of hoops trying to solve the trust problem for the consumer. And really, I think they ended up raising like 40.5 million. I think recently they've raised another 50 million, or at least the newspapers say that they have. And I think I got a first-hand lesson in capital crowding out, which is just very simply when a player comes into a very large market, where in most markets scale is important or network effect is important, right? I think in this business scale is very important because obviously if you give me a prize pool which is bigger, I have this lottery effect. 10 rupees dalo, 1 crore rupees jeet lo, right? In MGPL it's not possible because how will I get 10 lakh users, right? At the same time in one contest. Whereas MPL, because of that scale, could achieve that. They also took the route of, maybe from what I can see, a lot of these VC-backed businesses took the route of losing money to begin with, so that they could garner that scale, and with the idea being that they will make money at a later scale, which is, very understandable. And we obviously took a stand that we've got to remain profitable, right? So we achieved operational profitability in the second month itself. But again, when you're an operationally profitable business, your growth rate of 30% month on month, which looks amazing, starting from a small base, is still not large number, right? And when I tell sort of people that we were at 2.2 million users, they're like, my God, that's massive, right? Like, why did you even have to bother? I mean, the problem is that, our competitors were at 10 million plus users in probably 1/3 the time that we were at 2 million users, right? And that's where the difficulty comes because, with this, money is an asset. Obviously, it's not everything, but that asset does reduce your distribution cost to get to people, or reduce the time you want to take to get to that scale. And once you achieve that scale, many more doors open up, right? So I would say that that's a lesson that unfortunately I had to learn in a very hard way. It was my first proper sort of product and startup, and I'm probably the most emotionally charged about sort of MGPL because as you can understand from my angle, it almost looks like, hey, I was first to the market, but it seems like I wasn't the first to scale. Right?
Yours for the
what happened to and what happened to all these business studies of first mover advantage, right? I mean, there is really no first mover advantage. There is really a first scaler advantage in my view. After these lessons I've learned.
Yeah, so, you know how much I love the MGPL idea. I remember you sent me like a prototype, and I couldn't stop raving about it. I was like, this is the best business I've seen in a long time. Now, you talked about first mover advantage, and you said maybe that doesn't apply. Maybe first scaler applies. There's something called second mover advantage as well. Now, I would say even if MPL came in 1 year after you scaled, right? You educated the market, and even then, if they bombarded the market with, basically it's a price war, right? If they bombarded the market, the users would still shift, right? So if you're building a business with network effects, right? You want to build a business where you open up a market, but then you also protect that business. And every business, that's the problem that I sort of feel when it comes to the startup space versus the public market space. The startup space is all about creating a market and growing. It's not about protecting at all. And the public market space is all about protecting. I think when you're building a startup, you also need to start to think about protecting what you're building, right? So what are the learnings there? Like, how do you build a business which has network effects? And does a business truly have network effects if just a price war by a competitor will shift your users to the other business? What do you think about that?
Cool. So that probably is a couple of podcasts right there, right? To discuss about sort of moats and stuff. So again, here is my learning, right? Look, I think, as I said, my first angle was when people used to ask me, why do you think MGPL would keep succeeding? And I used to give the same answer, which I always felt was my competitive edge because I was in finance and hedge funds and I did well there, was I said, we know this product, we are going to be intellectually superior and our product iterations are going to make that difference, right? Again, I say, the learning there is that no one can, you have to keep innovating product, but at some point, like you said, if I get an innovation today, my competitor would see it and they'll copy it, T+2, right? So I have maybe 2 days edge or a 1 month edge. Is that really that big an edge? Not really, right? Because in the hedge fund world, you have to understand, I come, did the arbitrage disappears and I move away. In businesses, your edge has to, like you rightly said, about the public markets and private markets, your edge has to stay for a number of years for you to compound on it and take advantage of it, right? So again, it took me a while to really get the value of moats as people used to talk about. Now, yes, I hear a lot of podcasts, I read about it, but I think the true learning, at least for me, only comes when I fall flat on my face, which I have been doing a lot over the last 4 years and sort of learn those lessons, right? Look, I think network effect is a very interesting phenomenon. Now, one of the funds I follow and listen to a lot is nfx.com. I hope you provide your readers with that link. Mm-hmm. And they talk a lot about network effects, right? Their study says 70% of all tech value created in the US is only because of network effects. There are other modes like scale, brand, complex process, which will comprise of the remaining 30%. And capital at some point used to be a mode. It isn't anymore, right? Maybe in our parents' generation, capital was definitely a mode, but more so even now after Corona, cost of capital is dropping so much. There is so much of supply in the market. Capital isn't a moat anymore, really. So if we come to network effects, right? The true definition of network effect is if I have X users, the X plus first user is going to get a lot more benefit because X users are there. Now, in an idea like MGPL and real money sort of gaming, whether that's fantasy sports or rummy poker, there isn't a lot of this network effect because the developer of the product, which is your game, which could be a fantasy game or a casual game, is either a developer sitting outside your company or people inside your company making those games, right? Unlike Minecraft, as an example, which now has 100 million plus MAU, the users are the creators, right?
Please, what's
now,
MAU?
Some percentage. Sorry?
What's MAU?
Oh, sorry. MAU is monthly active users. So they have 100 million users who are active on a monthly basis. And so Minecraft, like Facebook, like Snapchat, like Twitter, the consumers are also the creators, right? So it's the network effect is the more people you get onto the platform, a percentage of them become your creators. The more they produce content, the more people want to consume content, and so on. The spiral goes up. Now, MGPL and most of real money gaming is sort of like a marketplace, like Amazon. There are marketplace network effects. Though they are weak, right? And NFX does a great job at sort of categorizing these. And that's the reason why a lot of these businesses can actually get, their moat isn't as strong. So I'll give you a great example. This was one of the NFX podcasts with the founder of Intuit, right? And if I remember correctly, the founder of Intuit was narrating a story. He was on the board of eBay and the board of Amazon. And Jeff Bezos apparently said, look, I'm going to come and create a product and I'm going to kill eBay. Right. And this guy said, listen, eBay has network effect, you can't. And Amazon and Jeff Bezos, said, look, I'll make a better UX and sort of take over this entire industry. And he's like, look, Jeff realized that it is almost impossible to beat network effect, even if you have a better product. And this is his words, to Jeff's credit, he very quickly closed that business down and refocused. And I think this is what Amazon has learned, right? Their business does not have very strong network effects, but what they have is scale and complexity of process. So what they do, as what Amazon does brilliantly, is look, they have to get a lot of suppliers on board. The reason they are a lot into distribution is to actually start controlling that experience, right? Now, distribution is a very heavy cost business, a very high friction business. And the beauty about the internet is distribution cost is almost zero. The beauty about the real world is it isn't, right? And Amazon is really trying to control that to drive that prices so much lower that even if for them it is a negative business, they get such a large moat and a competitive advantage that they just can't have any other player coming into that and competing with them.
Okay.
So I'll just draw this parallel. Look, in MGPL, there was scale. There isn't a network effect. If we created a business, which I think will happen, where people are creating their own games and those games are being used by other people to put money on, that's a true network effect business like an eBay, like Facebook, that actually will be very difficult to be beaten. Where the market is today, whether that's fantasy players or real money players, according to me, of course, scale is a moat, right? So don't get me wrong. But again, none of these businesses today have network effects. The day someone either figures out a business with a network effect or wants to write a check of, I don't know, 5 billion, maybe Geo at some point would want to come into this market. These businesses are vulnerable to that, according to me, right? And see, that's what happened with us, right? Yes, we were at 1 million users. It isn't that high. We got overtaken by a player who came with a lot of money on the table. It was just became a game of poker. We were playing all our 5 rupee, 10 rupee, and they came and said, let's just up the ante to 1 lakh rupee, right? And so we were like, okay, out of depth here, right? But that can happen with someone else, like a Geo coming in saying, I will up the ante to crores, right? The only way to beat that is to have a business which is your classic network effect business, which I don't think the current real money gaming players or RMG are at.
But okay, so I will go back to network effects a little bit. Basically what you're telling me is that if there's a two-sided market, the network effects are weak. If there's one market where the consumer is the producer, the network effects are strong. But why, right? And does that mean, so for example, let's assume MGPL was a one-sided market where you were able to figure out the consumers were able to produce their own games and they were able to compete with each other, right? And let's say you were still at 1 million users. An MPL could still come, give the same infrastructure, basically copy what you did, which I call the second mover advantage. Take your tech, spice it up a little bit, add a Virat Kohli to it, and they could still take away that platform, right? Why would users not migrate? Why is a consumer and generator same market model much stronger than a two-sided market?
Sure. So look, a lot of business. So generally, any business, the way at least I will see it and what I have read of it is there are producers, and here we are talking really, if it's gaming and media, which is what we have been doing, it's really content producers. There is a distribution mechanism, what does it cost to distribute? And then obviously the consumers, right? Now, in your traditional network effect business, production cost is zero. As I said, distribution cost is zero because you have created that network effect. People are coming in. There is really not a very high CAC or a zero CAC for people to install. And consumers are just wanting that experience. The classic case is Google, right? So Google search engine, they had a ready supply of all websites. If anything, actually, I would say they have a negative production cost because people want to pay money to actually come up the Google search results, right? So they are in a brilliant sort of environment. The distribution cost is zero. It's all internet. People just go and type Google. Google is now synonymous with search. And again, the consumer experience till the time they're getting relevant results is paramount, right? So even DuckDuckGo, which a lot of people claim, and they have published out a lot of papers that it's a better search engine, it doesn't matter. They will never take over Google, and they haven't been able to because of these network effects, right? So I guess your question is, hey, but what if DuckDuckGo had to do it, right? Now, I just call it short-circuiting the network effects. And this is exactly what the Chinese firms are doing, right? So if you see what ByteDance did with TikTok, is exactly that. They said, listen, Instagram and Facebook, they all grew over time with these network effects, and they have now at this area where I can't come and beat them, because how can I recreate that network effect? So let me short circuit it, right? Now, in my view, and I think in a lot of people who look at TikTok from a Chinese perspective, TikTok is a professionally content generated media platform, not a user generated content platform. This is very important. From my analysis, 95% of content made on TikTok is actually paid for, right? Whether they pay stars or influencers or agencies. When we were doing our second product, which is Yovo, we came across tons of these agencies who are employed to even go hire people in villages to create content. Nothing wrong in that. What they're doing is they're short circuiting the production side of it, right? They're saying, hey, take the money. I'll get all the great producers. And because I have the great producers, I will have people coming and looking at content. It's no different than what Netflix does, right? So by the way, Netflix does not have network effect either. It has great scale advantage and maybe some brand advantage, right? It really doesn't have any network effect, according to me. TikTok tried to do the same, right? And it has clearly succeeded, right? Apart from how sort of unfortunately what is happening to them all over the world now, maybe for right reasons or wrong reasons, I don't want to debate that. But TikTok clearly is an example of a successful business, like you're saying, where money was able to short circuit the network effects and come to the same level as an Instagram or a Facebook to do it. But let's look at the amount of money it took. Right? In India itself, TikTok was spending $15 million per month on marketing, right? And I think the US, they just released that over the next 3 years, they have $2 billion just to pay creators, right? Another example to show that even today, given the scale they're at, they are still having to short circuit this network effect, right? So, I mean, the question is, are they crazy? Why the hell are they doing it? I think what they've figured out is if Facebook, because the return on advertising spend that Facebook is able to provide to consumer and the value proposition it is at an amazing LTV and an amazing profit, right? Facebook and Google. So they are saying, listen, it's very difficult for me to compete in the normal network effect way. I will spend some of that, future profit today, short circuit this, and maybe make half the profits, but it will still be at a scale which will make it really relevant. But you have to have, maybe a money bank which is wanting to bank you for so long, or in the case of a lot of these Chinese firms like ByteDance, they have a cash cow already, right? So they are in a position where they make 3 to 4 billion in one business. They're able to sort of invest that in these other businesses because they see that potential and they see that scale, right? So of course, to summarize, is it possible to short circuit the network effect? Absolutely. The amount of money required is really high. So I'll tell you, I'm forgetting the name of this Chinese company. It's Unshai or something. Again, I think it's Tencent backed. In the US, they have already started paying people to watch videos, right? So not only are they short circuiting the production, they're also short circuiting the consumption, right? Now there is no end to that. So if they had 100 billion, can they synthetically create the network effect? Probably, right? But again, do you have the conviction, the backing, the money, maybe a cash cow to get that 100 billion? If you do, then, maybe worth a shot. Not easy to create.
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, so Warren Buffett has this theory that when he used to talk about newspaper businesses in small towns, right? He would say that they are the best businesses because what will happen is, if being the biggest newspaper in a small town, you will get the most number of ads. If you get most number of ads, you have the best editorial team. You have the best editorial team. You have the best user, the most number of users, and it sort of grows. It's a good virtuous cycle, right?
Yep.
To my mind, Byju's is basically the best newspaper in the country. They're basically developing that because I will get as many users as possible, I will get all the best teachers. If I get the best teachers, I will get, again, it sort of grows into that. Now, it seems to me from this discussion right now, network effects is a fancy word for scale. At the end of it, It is the scale that you're saying.
No. So this is, look, again, I'm again saying I'm more a student now than I can be a teacher, because I haven't yet gotten a path to that success yet in my startup journey. But what I will say as a keen student and having learned some lessons in a first-hand basis is that there is a massive difference between network effect and scale, right? Now, when we did, and I'll give you again my first-hand example of MGPL versus Yovo. When we did MGPL, it was bootstrapped by me. We hardly did any marketing. We kept getting user growth, kept getting it, right? Now, as I said, I don't think MGPL had network effects, but it had got that product market fit that people call it. I really want to look at it as a product motivation fit, right?
Okay.
The motivation was people wanted to get that adrenaline rush. They got it in a skill-based environment, which is legal, and it really filled that, and more people told other people, and it kept growing, right? Because it didn't have network effect, we got taken down by somebody with more money, right? And frankly, they can get taken down by somebody with even more money, and so on and so forth. See, Google is a classical case of network effect, right? Facebook is a classic case of network effect. I am on Facebook and I'm writing content to connect with people, but as I write content and connect with people, some other people like it. They like me, my vanity or my fame, So there is this great article by Eugene V, which is called Status as a Service, which is actually an 80-page article. But I think this is the Bible that everybody should read if they want to talk about social network, right? I'll send you that link.
Yeah,
we'll link it down as well. So that would be great. And what he says is that, look, what is the value that I'm getting as a creator? The value you give me is vanity, the fame, right? The more people that come on the platform that follow me or like my content, the more fame I get, right? The more fame I get, the more I produce. The more I produce, the more people want to see content, right? So it's a spiral cycle, again, will just never end, right? Because they took something that existed everywhere, which is everybody in society wants to be recognized, right? They want fame. So vanity and greed, these are my two new mantras of figuring out motivation for people. If you have vanity, or if you solve for vanity or greed, you're sorted. And that society, that is really what you're creating is network effect, right? So MGPL, I think, is an idea to solve greed, right? I'm greedy. I want more money. This is giving me a good way to get money using my skill. It's not very different than what I do in a profession. I apply my knowledge to earn money. I'm doing the same in a skill-based environment to actually earn money as well. But it's much less friction. See, with your Warren Buffett example, one thing I will say is that a small newspaper, in a local newspaper, the advantage they had was distribution, right? The problem is internet has broken distribution down to zero cost, right? So what happens is if I am Guardian, it now takes me no money to actually give it to you in the local market. And oh, by the way, localize it for you as well. Very little money to do that either, right? So that's the problem that is happening now with businesses, which is why it's all about sort of, hyper scaling, blitz scaling, as Reid Hoffman talks about. And really, once you get to that level, I think AI and ML is probably the most misused thing in our market today. But you can have a lot of these automated solutions to give you personalized experiences, right? Which is where TikTok won, right? Quite frankly, the moat of TikTok, if I would say, apart from money, the biggest moat they have is their AI and personalization platform. And again, Eugene V has written a brilliant article titled TikTok and the Sorting Hat, where he talks about the moat of TikTok's algorithm and personalization, which frankly, even Facebook and Instagram lack, right? So to again reiterate the point, scale and network effects are very different, very, very different. Scale is a moat, but is still a weaker form of moat, as NFX has already shown. Network effect, which creates 70% of the value, is great. But look, like any jargon, when people realize that network effects is valuable, everybody jumps and shows why they have network effects, even if they don't, right?
Yeah.
So tomorrow I'll start selling you some apples and I'll say, hey, it's network effect. Well, the more apple you eat, the more orchards I will have. The more orchards I have, I'll give you more apples. The more you eat, blah, blah, blah. But that's not network effect, right? It's scale. Netflix does not have network effect. it has scale.
Oh, I totally agree. Okay, so talking about Netflix and talking about a video platform, let's talk a little bit about Yovo. So while you've talked about Yovo and your experience a little bit here, just for the users, if you could explain exactly what Yovo did, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So look, again, by the time of mid 2019, we were licking our wounds with NGPL, trying to figure out what to do. Really, our idea was that, listen, I think we can come up with, again, in my view, quote unquote, an intellectually superior idea. As I said, my journey so far has been to create products which give a new behavior to the users. So our thesis with Yovo was, you have videos on one end, which are a passive form of entertainment. You have gaming on the other end, which are very interactive, very engaging. What if we targeted this whole market in the middle of making creation as easy as videos, but consumption, which is interactive?
Okay.
So like Netflix Bandersnatch, where you choose your own adventure and choose your own story, we said there is a brilliant opportunity to launch a product where people will choose their own adventure in a short video, vertical feed based format, right? And that was the genesis of Yovo. We were able to convince two great investors to back us. And so we started that journey, right? The one major learning I had in that journey is, as we launched, we started getting a lot of users. They were spending on an average 10 minutes, which for an early platform is a very good metric. The thing we noticed is only 10% of users were actually clicking on the interaction, right?
Okay.
Qualitatively, when we went back, sorry.
Could you explain the Yovo user experience a little bit? Because I think that will help explain what the issue was here.
Sure. So, unlike TikTok, where you just got a 30 seconds clip and you just swipe up to see the next clip, here, just imagine we had actually created one cricket game where a bowler comes and bowl and you decide and click where I want to hit the ball. Wherever you click it, that shot gets played, right? Or you have, a female who comes and says, hey, I'm going out for a party. Which of these two dresses should I wear, right? And you click on a particular dress, she will wear that dress, and you can sort of see her in one dress or the other dress or 5 such dresses, right? So you are actually choosing, making a decision for the creator, and that decision gets played out. So you are actually choosing your adventure, right? Interestingly, what happened is people out of habit were using us like a normal vertical platform. Qualitatively, they came back to us and said, hey, I don't want to wait for knowing these options. Just give me that option as soon as the girl asks. So I was like, well, if you don't know the context, how will you know how to decide, right? They were like, I don't care, right? So what we really came to a conclusion is this habit of instant gratification right now is so predominant that people don't really care about a higher experience, right? When I say higher, I mean, Yovo, the genesis is that everybody has the plain vanilla experience of short videos. Some percentage of that would want a different experience, right? I would say that maybe we were too early to India. There are now a lot of companies in the US who are actually experimenting with that. A company called Whatify, which is funded by Anderson Horowitz, got founded earlier this year, doing exactly what we were doing in Yovo last year, right? Okay. So maybe India's market is today not ready for a product like that, because one thing we found is that interactive videos really didn't take off in India, right? Okay. We then, applying our MGPL mind and trying the short circuit, tried to convert Yovo to a mobile-first reality platform, right? So what we did in MGPL with games, we tried to do with sort of videos. So imagine that your Dance India Dance is now happening on mobile, right? Again, I think something which is bound to happen. India is hooked on to talent reality shows and reality shows in general. If you see all your content on mobile, there is no reason why that shouldn't come on mobile. Again, I would say my learning is that, again, no network effect really in that business. Because for people, talent shows is a grand gala experience, right? The way we tried to do it is a UGC example. But again, we saw the likes of Hotstar, etc., are coming during this Corona period. They got Barun Dhawan. again, from analysis, paid them, Flipkart did this, paid Varun Dhawan crores of rupees as brand ambassador, create this gala event. And I think that's what people want in India out of a show, right? It's gala, it's superstars, it's just out of, crazy, extravagant stuff that is happening. Again, it is Netflix like a business then, where I'm throwing a lot of money to generate content. Hopefully I will get, millions of users to come and pay for that. But again, that business is scale, not network effects, right? And again, if a business is scale, the amount of capital you have will really make a big difference. And again, as I said, I'm not as comfortable trying to spend tons of money in the hope that I'll get it later. Maybe I'm not just made that way. There is nothing wrong in that way of doing business, in my opinion. It's just that's not my DNA, unfortunately, to kind of burn in the hope that the next 5 years will be great. I'm still, unfortunately, a very risk-reward driven person in terms of putting capital as a resource to use. And in my opinion, I wasn't comfortable in doing that. So, which is why we're at that stage where, we are pivoting again. So this is going to be my sort of fourth product now in the last 4 years. And as I said, it's, as a student, I have learned more falling flat on my face than I can give advice for what will succeed. But hey, as Edison said, I can only quote him right now. I now know 3 ways of not to do a startup. Maybe the fourth one will be the right way.
You sell yourself short. Just about the part where you said that, because again, I loved Yovo part 2, the whole gamification of talent hunt. It's like, again, it's like so simple, elegantly, like simple and beautiful. Loved that part, right. And just wanted to sort of prod you a little bit on the learnings there, right? Now, while you say that maybe it is the gala events or the big thing, all those seeing yourself on the big stage, etc., which makes the reality TV experience work, I would say that there are people who are doing it for free still, like on YouTube or TikTok or any other platform. People are producing content primarily just for likes, right? Mm-hmm. So they just want that their talent, whatever it is that they do well, to be recognized by people. Now, on top of that, you added a layer of gaming, which according to me was the beauty. That, hey, you're just producing, you're singing for the heck of it anyway, right? So why don't you compete and let users determine if you are the best in this pool of singers? It just adds to the whole excitement of it, right? So I disagree a little bit where you say that, only a gala reality TV thing would work. I would think that people would want to come on and just do it for the recognition of it, right? So, what are your views there? Do you agree, or do you feel that it's just the gala thing that would work? And second, if assuming the non-gala YouTube version of a gaming situation would work, what are the impediments of monetizing it? Like, are you able to monetize that experience?
Okay, so look, again, with the thesis or the idea that I had, as I said, there is one problem which I think a lot of people have told me that I have as an entrepreneur, which is that I try to analyze too many things, trying to get to the future too much, right? Rather than just focus on, hey, let me get to the next milestone. Who knows what's going to happen then, and I'll reevaluate at that point of time. Now, according to me, my view was that seeing this, so let me address, there are two parts you asked, which is one, why isn't a gamified a gamified TikTok, which is what we were, to be honest, a better idea? So let me answer, right? Now, as you rightly said, a gamified TikTok, the reason people are coming is fame, right? That is why they are on TikTok. That is why they will be on us. Yes, have we given a little better of an experience to the consumer because of the gamification? Of course we have. But the gamification is not really what will end up changing the behavior massively, in my view, right? What we really wanted to do was change the game itself and make it into a proper game. But the only thing, because it was very fame driven, that we could achieve was the gamification of it, which I again thought was very weak. And my idea was that, listen, if it works, we'll get copied by someone who's with more money just coming in. Because again, all these players, look what Instagram did with Snapchat by copying story, and then everybody did, and almost killed Snapchat right before they found their niche in AR and lenses and really built another moat around them. Is the same thing, because you are running in a massive pond with sharks, right? So a weak feature like a gamification is nice, but we would just end up being a lab, right? So that was one. Second, I think my view is that, like you're rightly saying, talent shows will happen on mobile. It's just a no-brainer. It is going to happen. But I think the way it will happen is there will be someone who will make an IPL of this, right? Now, did I have the desire to go and maybe, for me, the perfect person to do it, or at least one perfect person to do it, is Karan Johar, right? I kind of see that he has already recognized the value of TV. He does that in TV. I think all these stars will start recognizing the value of mobile. Maybe they have already, with Akshay Kumar producing the game Fauji, and maybe getting into the mobile gaming industry because of that. And with the initiatives that the government is taking, maybe a lot more people will be evaluating this opportunity a lot earlier than assumed. And maybe a person like a Karan Johar will recognize it and say, listen, if I'm doing all these TV reality shows, mobile is where the market is 100 times, right? So like IPL, let me create that sort of area, right? The thing is that is not an area, to be honest, that excites me, right? Now, creating an IPL as a business case is a very interesting case. It's just not something as a problem solving that I was really excited about, right? It's a very complex problem to solve. It is just not a complex problem that I was excited to solve. So I said, well, path one, I'm a lab. So if the gamification feature works, I'll get copied, get eaten away. Part two, not really a problem that I'm keen to solve. I'm 100% sure, as a no-brainer, someone will solve it. If maybe some of your audience hears it, or maybe Karan Johar hears it, this is a great idea. Please go ahead.
He is in the audience. Hi, Karan Johar.
Hi, Karan. Create the next dance Premier League, and it is bound to work, and it's bound to happen, right? We are seeing that happen across. But IPL gives that galaness, gives it the structure, gives it the mobile, gives it the democratization to every person. Again, as I said, something that is bound to happen, right? But as I also explained to you, it's a personal reason. It's a very complex problem, just not something I am excited about to go and create an IPL of dance or an IPL of singing.
Makes perfect sense. I think product market fit, there's founder market fit as well. Unless you're willing to die on that hill, there's no point trying to climb it. So I completely agree there. Okay, now after these experiences, and I hope people realize that the amount of learning within this about A, network effects, B, just audience, and C, just what it takes, what is it that people really want. With those learnings, now that you're evaluating future opportunities, right? And I was just reading a very cool Medium article that you wrote, which again, I'm going to put down in the links, which is a unified theory on why people do what they do. I think that's what it's, one second. Unified theory, I remember. Unified theory of needs. Yeah. Actually, that's what you wrote. Unified theory of why people do what they do on the Medium article. So if you could just, put us in your mind and tell us, what is it that you think about when you're evaluating opportunities in India, so that we get a better of idea, a framework for us to think about, the opportunities that are present.
Sure. Look, so a lot of these learnings came over the last, 2 or 3 months, as we, particularly the last couple of months, as we started reevaluating what is the next product that we want to come out as, and what are the learnings that we have from sort of all the things we have done so far, and it really just occurred to us that we always tend to, me and obviously our team, my when I say me, it's obviously the core team together, right? I alone am only a cog in that wheel. We tend to complicate problems, right? We will try to say, oh my God, oh yeah, great. this feature I will give so that the user can do this. I'll give this feature, I'll give that feature, and the product we'll be making is the PhD of everything. Nobody would have seen a product like this ever in their life. So intellectually superior, it'll be ridiculous, right? One major learning we had is, of course, humans are complex. There are many things that we create. But actually, the driving forces, the needs theory, the motivation theory is not as complicated as it looks, right? And my aim to when I started writing the unified theory is, we have obviously most people get exposed to Maslow in their study. There is the Herzberg principle of hygiene and motivation. There are all of these, Pink and Drive and tons of people writing about motivation. I was like, is it that complex, right? Like, do I have to say, oh, if I'm doing this product, I should apply this framework. For that use case, it is this product, this motivation theory. For that use case, it is that motivation theory. We were really enjoying all of that, right? And I was like, this doesn't seem right? All the other people who are getting success, I don't really think they're thinking this complex that we are, right? Their execution is complex. Their thought is really simple, right? So what is my learning there? And my learning was, I actually think that the needs theory in humans is very, very simplistic, right? There are physiological needs that you have of food, of water, of safety, of having a little bit of growth. And there are psychological needs that you have, which are infinite, right? So the way I classify it, we have finite needs like hunger. If I'm hungry, nothing else matters to me. I just want food. But once I have a certain amount of food, I'm not hungry anymore. I don't want food. So it's finite, right? And there are infinite needs of autonomy, of relatedness, of competence, right? And again, in this theory, a very nice thing that I realized is humans just want growth, right? Which comes within this competence framework, which is I just want to feel that I'm becoming more competent. I'm growing every day, right? And this is, we can come to an idea of why inflation as a positive number is always required. But the essence, if I have to say it for economics, is just this. We want growth, right? If I used to teach this economics during my MBA Guru days, and I used to ask a question that, hey, let's do a survey. So if the only thing you bought was Xbox, and I give you two scenarios, in one, your salary goes up by 10%, but Xbox price goes up by 20%. In the other, your salary goes down by 10, but the Xbox prices decrease by 10. Where are you better off? Now, your rational mind will tell you salary gir gayi 10%, but Xbox 20% ho gaya. That is what I want. But most people will answer growth. They're like, salary बढ़ गई है यार, growth चाहिए. Yes, the money that I will use for, which is in this hypothetical case of only buying Xbox, has gone up even more. Doesn't matter, right? So people want growth, right? I have just sort of come to learn from this unified theories of really saying, things which are a little more sin than virtue are much easier to sell. And hence, as I say, I always try to look at things more in vanity, greed. We don't have many examples of pride, sloth, prejudice, etc. But even them, products which end up selling you one of the sins are products which will grow much faster and much easier than anything else, right? And here is again, by the way, my view about why some are very uncomfortable with what edtech companies are doing today, and why at the same time they are amazingly successful. I believe that what edtech has always told you is either greed or vanity, right? The greed is, hey, come and do this coaching class. I'll get you into UPSC. I'll get you the government job. I'll get you through JEE, right? I got into JEE only because of vanity, right? I have my elder cousin, my bhaiya, he's like my real brother. He was my idol. I just always wanted to beat him. That was the only reason I wanted to crack JEE, right? There was no other reason of me wanting to be truly an engineer. I am being very open and honest. That was the only reason I worked my ass off for 2 years to clear JEE exam, right? And I think today at Tech, if you see the latest examples of, there are a lot of people who write negative reviews about Byju's or White Hat Junior. They are just marketing companies, etc. I kind of say that, look, guys, resources for learning have been free since the internet came out, right? Whether you look at MOOCs in Coursera, whether you look at Khan Academy, whether you look at coding courses, learning is free. But why isn't it working, right? Because people don't really want to learn on their own. It's so easy to get to fulfill one of my sin desires or vanity or greed than actually asking me to go and become competent myself, right? And by the way, games are a perfect case study of how to solve for psychological needs by game design. There is no other better example to learn how to, for a lack of better word, create a system which manipulates you in giving you that autonomy, giving you that competence, and giving you that feel good factor. Is there anything wrong with it? Of course not. What do we do with beauty and clothes? Clothes is all about vanity, right? The utility of a cloth is the same whether I buy $100 or I buy a Lacoste t-shirt. But I buy Lacoste because it's vanity. It's my self-expression. I want to tell people this is me, this is who I am, and this is why I'm special, right? Nothing wrong in it at all. I believe actually all good things about it, right? And I really feel now that even if I look at edtech as an example, gaming as an example, any brand as an example, which has tons of these vertical sort of brands which are internet first that are coming up, they're really solving for either vanity or greed, right? Greed in a lot of cases being take one subscription per month, unlimited, right? This Class Plus company in the US, they were the ones who actually pioneered this subscription model. Month ka ek paisa do, unlimited classes. My God, they made me greedy, right? Wow, मतलब कितनी वैल्यू, मैं जाऊंगा शायद जिम एक बार भी नहीं, but कितना, oh my God, मतलब CureFit applied that same model according to me in India, brilliant, मतलब 23,000 रुपए महीने के दो, unlimited classes for the whole year. मैंने actually लिया था, मैं एक बार भी नहीं गया, but they sold me on that greed, right? The greedy person in me took that class because I was like, wow, what value, right? Then I mean, what skill have they really sold me? Nothing, right? All those classes that I can get, if I was really motivated, I could have done it for free
on YouTube.
But I'm not. Most people aren't, right? So my biggest learning is, of course, humans are complex, but they aren't as complex as a lot of the MBA theory or a lot of papers I read. We are relatively driven by a few needs, and if a product at the core of it drives those needs, the product will be hit. Right? So Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram are classic cases of vanity, right? Which is why status as a service, they're selling me fame, done in a very complex manner, right? So don't get me wrong, execution is very complex, idea is very simple, right? LinkedIn, I think, is greed. Right? I got this from a Reid Hoffman's podcast where he simplifies this as well. This is, by the way, picking from his view, and I completely endorse it and agree with it, that Instagram is vanity, LinkedIn is greed, right? And when I started hearing these things, I was like, wow, that is so clear, right? EdTech today sells a lot of either vanity or greed, and which is why these companies are where they are, right? Now, if you wanted to study UPSC or JEE, tons of free resources, right? Why are parents spending lakhs of rupees to do it? Well, because from a parent's perspective, you're solving guilt for them. यार मैंने तो अपने बच्चे के लिए पैसा देके टीचर रखवा दिया, अब मेरे को गिल्ट नहीं हो सकता. For the child, it's like, beta, ye padh le. Whether you want to get into IIT for vanity because I'm special, like I wanted to be, or whether it's greed ki naukri itni achhi lagegi ki, I'll be earning lakhs and lakhs of rupees per year. All these newspaper will publish IIT ki placement, crores rupees mil rahe hain, blah, blah, blah. It's all greed driven. So yeah, I think my learning so far is simplify it, focus on that one need, and then the execution will always be complex. But apply your mind in that execution, not at the trying to create a quote unquote intellectually superior product.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much. Now we'll do some rapid fire quickly and then I'll let you go. Okay. Favorite book?
Wow. Favorite book right now is Courage to be Disliked. I think it's a life-changing book for me. Highly recommended to everybody. I think it just completely opened a new paradigm of thinking about how I should look at myself. I got married last year, and my wife is a psychologist. So I think my journey from my work was more towards motivations of human. By talking about my wife, and how she looks at patients and how people and the problems that we have and the And I think it is now becoming part of a culture of, really looking at meditation. It has been part of Indian culture for a long time, but I think the modern awareness about it is really making it a lot more. And I think Courage to be Disliked is one of those books that I read and I got flowed. So highly recommend.
Okay. And can you name the author?
My God, that's just skipping my mind. Wait, I have this book right here. The author is Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitaka Koga. I hope I'm pronouncing it even anywhere close to them. These are Japanese authors, so excuse my pronunciation, but I hope we'll include a link to the book.
We'll totally include the link and totally get you butchering the pronunciation. I mean, there's no other way.
No, that's cut.
No, it won't be. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote? Wow. Clearly, if I'm thinking this long, there shouldn't be many. But I really believe in this quote of, most of success is just showing up. I'm not really clear as to who at least said it, but I really just believe in that. I mean, I really feel that whatever little success I have seen in life is just perseverance. And that just doesn't mean that doggedly keep following something. You have to be smart about it as well. But most things get solved if you just keep at it for a while. That's my experience.
That's perfect. Favorite business personality, if any?
Favorite?
Business personality.
Oh, I am a major fan of Dhirubhai Ambani. I mean,
okay.
I used to, even as a kid. So my father's is from the synthetic fiber industry. So there was always a lot of talk about Reliance in our house. I am enamored by the stories I've heard about Dhirubhai Ambani. Jokingly, because I felt I wanted to make a connection. As a kid, I always used to call him Dhiru Kaka. I have never had the pleasure of ever either meeting him or anybody from the esteemed family. But man, I wish I had the opportunity to meet him. He is, I just have a lot of respect for what he has built. For even as a kid, what I heard, what Reliance is doing, obviously, it seems like the Ambani family has taken that to another level. Dhirubhai Ambani hands down.
But why? Why? What is it about him that you're so enamored by?
So I think the time at which Dhirubhai Ambani sort of grew is the business is I think just challenging the sort of status quo, right? So we have to remember that he built his business when License Raj was still a very big thing in India, right? He was one private company to actually build the business that he did. Now, there are a lot of, like anyone's life, there are a lot of people who say one thing or the other about his methods. I have no comment about it. He saw a particular opportunity, he did it. I've seen the movie Guru. I have also read the book, The Polyester Prince. And I think both Guru and The Polyester Prince actually give me even more respect for Dhirubhai Ambani and the challenges he had. And also, by the way, you have to remember that what VC's businesses and blitzscaling people have learned now, Dhirubhai Ambani or Dhiru Kaka, as I hope I can take the liberty of calling him, as I used to always fondly remember him even as a kid. He figured that out, 30, 40 years ago, right? And the idea that, listen, if I'm in a market which is of massive scale, I'll raise money, I'll actually undercut all the other sort of competition. And because I'm now working on razor thin profits, but because my scale is so huge, that becomes the moat, right? This is something that the world now talks about in terms of blitzscaling and Reid Hoffman's book, and everybody talks about these venture funded businesses. He was actually doing it 40 years ago, right? That's brilliant. Think about it. And we say that India is learning from the West. I wish all of us learned from Dhiru Kaka. We would have been miles ahead of all the other countries already. So, if I may take the liberty again, I would say Dhiru Kaka was actually the founder of blitzscaling much before everybody else discovered it, and it became a Harvard case study and books were being written about it. And I think that's the brilliance. So breaking the license Raj almost to me seems like single-handedly, and applying these phenomena, to me, I was just enamored by it. right?
No,
And growing as a kid, I was always, I never had the charm to take a job in the public sector. So for me, it was always industrialist and private sector, which always enamored me. And there was no other better role model to look forward to in terms of success, at least, than Dhirubhai Ambani.
No, I agree. And on just the fact that his ideas are probably something that we're doing. I feel all new ideas are basically old ideas packaged well or packaged in a new manner.
Yeah, with better jargon, right?
With better
Maybe
jargon.
If he knew blitz scaling, it would have been a phenomenon 40 years ago.
True. Last question. Most important moment during your business journey till now?
Most important moment during my business journey. I hope that is yet to see. There are many important moments, right?
Okay.
I do hope there are many more to come. One. Look, getting the first investor check was a great moment because this was such an amazing validation of our team. Starting MGPL and getting to our first 1 lakh users was amazing. We did a video of it. All of us signed on the blackboard. It is still etched in my mind. When we shut down MGPL, I think I cried the whole day. This was in November of last year. We had raised money for our next idea. We were all sort of hiring people and stuff, but it was such an emotionally charged moment that I don't know whether I will experience that pain that I went through, but I always want to keep it because, MGPL will always remain sort of the first baby, always remain special, always will remain something that has given me so much learning. And I couldn't believe I'm not a person who cries a lot. Maybe unfortunately I don't do that enough, but I think that day I couldn't stop crying. So again, it's not a great memory in a way of it doesn't sort of, I can't today tell you, oh my God, I made X million dollars and whatever. I don't have that yet, but a lot of great events, some of which I have told you, a lot of great memories so far.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anshul. Now, if you enjoyed, please tell our viewers to like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow.
Guys, Naman is not only a great friend of mine, he is someone with whom I have had amazing discussions over the last 7 years of me coming back to India. I think he is really figuring out and has got this niche of giving you guys some great content. I love hearing his podcast. I hope a lot of you will. And I'm sure that a lot of you will at least gain some insights out of it. So please like, subscribe his podcast and really make it grow much bigger. And if for no one else, Dhiru Kaka is with all of us. He would want you to subscribe to this podcast as well, guys. Let's do it.
Love it. That's the best endorsement. Thanks, Anshul.